Do you have to convince executives or stakeholders but feel that the way that you express yourself in English isn't very persuasive? If this is a weak point you feel you have, let me help you improve it over the next 15 minutes. Let's crack on then, shall we? Hello and welcome back to Confident Business English. You're here with me, Anna, your host and neuro-language coach. Just before we move on, if you do love the podcast, don't forget that you can sign up and become a free member of Confident Business English. You'll get the full transcripts, my weekly newsletter, which lots of people love as a compliment to the podcast, and extra bonus content. Find the link to sign up in the description box of this episode. So, moving on to our topic for today, how to sound more convincing and persuasive in English. The reason I wanted to talk about this today is because I've got a few clients at the moment that are really grappling with this. They have to present ideas to the executive team, and they also really don't have a lot of time to do that. I'm also thinking about one client in particular who has teams around the world. They have to launch new ideas and promote new ways of working, and they have to sound convinced of their new ideas and plans, because if they don't sound convincing, then why is the team going to be convinced that this is a good idea? To illustrate my point, I'm going to start with two pitches that I'm going to read to you. The context is this. Imagine it's a manager and I'm going to explain why I think investing in training is important. In both of these paragraphs, they're technically correct. There's nothing wrong with them. So the question is, which one comes across as more convincing and more persuasive? Here's the first one. In terms of the training, I think that offering some training might help the team a bit, especially in areas like communication. I don't think it will make a big difference straight away, but I suppose it could be useful, and I guess it's something to consider if there's extra budget available. Here's the second one. In terms of the training, I'm really confident that if we invest in the training now, we'll see a real boost in how the team performs and how long people stay with us. I honestly believe that if we focus on these skills, things like client communication and working with data will help us get much better results and stay ahead, which I know is a really important goal for us. For me, it's a smart move. I think it strengthens the team and it protects the business in the long run. What do you think? Which one was more convincing? I'm going to assume that it was quite obvious what I was trying to do there. Option B was by far, in terms of the technical vocabulary, the more convincing speech. You'll also notice that I did try to show you what the delivery was like on the different speeches. So in the first one, I was kind of neutral, a little bit flat. I didn't really sound very interested at all. And then in the second one, I was trying to bring a little bit of energy there just to show you that your tone does also affect how it comes across. It's not just the words, but also the way that you deliver them. Let's analyze then what made the second one more convincing and how you can use those tools as well. You'll notice in the first one, I didn't actually say I think at any point. I said, I'm confident that. I honestly believe that. This is some great vocabulary that you can tap into if you want to sound more convincing. The top ones that you could use there are, I'm confident that. I'm positive that. A very simple swap that you could do is just changing I think that to I believe that. The next point is that in the first pitch, I had a lot of vocabulary that weakened my argument. So I said, well, some training might help the team a little bit, but maybe not. It probably won't make a huge difference, but maybe yes. It could be useful. I guess it's something to consider. I suppose. That vocabulary is all fine and there's a time and a place for it. But if you're trying to get across to somebody why you think they should do it, that is going to weaken your argument. If you notice that you're saying mights, lots of coulds, I guess, I suppose, that is going to translate to your audience. Finally, and it may seem a little bit obvious, just use vocabulary that's a little bit more interesting. This takes some time to think about, but it's absolutely worth it. I remember listening to a podcast and there was a woman on there and she used to be in charge of the Big Brother program television series. And her job was essentially to make sure that the ratings were high. And her big thing is it's your responsibility to be interesting. And you can do that by choosing certain words. For example, I said to see a real boost, to strengthen the team, to protect the business in the long run, to help us stay ahead. These are almost like buzzwords. I don't know if you've ever heard that term before, but it's almost as if you need to pick some buzzwords for your idea, some words and phrases that just make it a little bit more interesting. Don't underestimate the power of just choosing a slightly more interesting word, and then you can repeat these phrases during your speech or during the presentation if it's something slightly longer. Let's have a look at a different example. It's still with the same context, but again, what I want you to think about is which one comes across as more convincing and why. I'm going to do the same thing as well. I'm going to sound really bored and uninterested on the first one and a little bit more interested on the second one so you can see the difference between the two. Here's the first one. Lately, there have been a few more complaints and we've lost some people from the team too. I think that training could help, but I don't know, it's hard to say exactly how much. I think it might make things better over time, and I know some other companies are doing it, but maybe we could try something small to see how it goes. If there's a bit of budget left over, I don't really think it's urgent, but maybe it could be something to look into at some point. Even just with that, you can hear it. There's nothing wrong with the words that I'm saying. But if we want to be convincing and persuasive, a bit of this might, could, maybe, meh. Like that's not going to convince people because you don't sound convinced of the idea yourself. Oh, it's not really urgent. Maybe we could look into it at some point. No, I think this is a really good idea and it's definitely worth looking into at some point. Here's a little point with intonation as well, because you might notice when I was making a suggestion, I was using rising intonation. Maybe we could try something small and see how it goes if there's a bit of budget left over. Those are sentences, but my intonation is rising. And that gives the impression that I'm less secure, I'm less sure, and I'm also kind of asking for some kind of validation or almost permission. Whereas if I do the same sentences but with falling intonation, the impression is very different. We could try something small to see how it goes and implement it if there's a little bit of budget left over. Same sentence, very different feeling. Can you see how I come across more decisive and more clear about what I want to do in the second one just by changing my intonation? That's not to say that either of those versions are right or wrong. It's just that they're different. They get across a different type of feeling. And if you want to sound more convincing and persuasive, these are some of the little touches that can make a difference. Oh, let me do the second paragraph. Sorry, we did it in a slightly different order this time, but I got a bit carried away. Here we go. Here's the second one. Over the past year, we've seen a 20% rise in client complaints related to miscommunication, and turnover in our key roles has actually gone up by 10%. There's really, really solid data out there showing that if we can focus on training, it can reduce these issues by about 30%. So I really feel that if we take action now, we're not just dealing with what's happening at the moment, but we're also going to save in the future on hiring costs. And it can be up to 5,000 euros every time we lose somebody. Can you see the difference between the two? The first one was vague. Understandable, but vague. I didn't really understand the scale of the issue. Whereas the second one, what I was using there is lots of data and statistics, 20%, 10%, 30%, 5,000 to add a little bit of punch. So that's the first thing, not really an English thing, but let the data do the work for you. If you notice that you're using a lot of these general quantifiers, some, a lot of, a little bit, then maybe you might want to ask yourself the question, could I use something more specific here that would come across as more convincing? The second point is In the first one, I said lately there have been some issues. We actually talked about this in the previous episode. Lately is when we're talking about temporary situations. But here in this context, well, it's a little bit vague. Like, be specific. Since the start of the year, in the last 2 quarters. The third point here is a really simple English tool, which is really. This is your absolute best friend when it comes to making things sound more convincing and more persuasive. There's really, really solid data. This is really important. This is really going to help us focus on the long term rather than the short term. Just that one simple word is really effective. The fourth point is try to avoid meh words. Let me explain what I mean, because you can't really say meh without doing the sound. A meh word is kind of just something that's a little bit bland, a little bit vague, not very convincing. It doesn't carry a lot of weight or impact. Imagine if I said something like, there is good data. Okay, it's fine. It's a little bit meh. But if I say there's really solid data, ooh, that's got a little bit of a different feel. We're talking about reliability, strength. That can make a difference to how your argument comes across. Another meh word would be if you wanted to talk about nice. This is a really nice program. Ugh, meh, not very convincing. This is a really clear program, well structured, engaging, effective, blah, blah, blah. You get my drift, right? So be careful of too many meh words. And meh is just spelled M-E-H. It's not like a real word. It's just a sound that we do in reaction to these not very interesting words. And I promise you it's real. Okay, so if you're listening to this and you're like, what is she going on about? It's real. It's a real thing. Finally, let me just touch very quickly on some points around figures from an English perspective, because this is important. A quick focus on prepositions. Turnover has gone up by 10% versus turnover has gone up to 10%. By is the amount it has changed, and to is the final end point. You want to be careful with that, because if you mix it up, you're getting across a different meaning. Also with numbers, the last one there we said was every time that we have to replace somebody, it's 5,000 euros. I said 5,000 rather than 5K. When is it appropriate to say K with thousands? I would honestly say that if you're in doubt, use thousands. Why? Because it's more formal. It's much better if you're in meetings and presentations. It's clearer, it's more precise, and it's more professional. K is better when, it's a little bit more informal. You're talking between your team. You're like, and you want to be really quick and fast. Like, well, we'll probably need 5K for that project. It's short, but it's efficient, but a little bit casual. Understandable, and definitely not the end of the world, but it might just sound a little bit out of context. In short, then, and to wrap up this episode, your vocabulary choices in English can strengthen or weaken your message. If your goal is to sound more convincing, you might want to consider using some of these techniques to help you. And I really hope that gave you a bit of an overview to build your confidence if you have to do this, even if it's just a small step. All right, we will leave it there for today. Thanks as always for squeezing this session into your busy day. I really hope that it was helpful, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.